Hello, hello, hello. So everybody's talking about Terrence Crawford and his team and the things that they've been saying. Um, as far as Earl Spence, we know one of his representatives, I guess you could say Bernie, the boxer, who, some people like to say sometimes, oh, well, this person doesn't speak for this particular person. But we've seen Terrence Crawford on a regular basis co-sign everything that Bernie says. In his presence, talking the crazy stuff that he talks in front of him, and him just co-signing it. So you can pretty much say yes, he speaks for Terrence Crawford. And in one of the interviews that he's had, pretty much was screaming about Earl Spence, that they don't need Earl Spence, and Terrence Crawford can go and do his own thing. That he has representatives, which I'm guessing is MTK, who I guess quote have plans for him, and that hey, they're good. And they're screaming F PBC and F this and F that, and but if we can't get Thurman or Earl Spence, we'll just go fight in maybe a Keith Thurman, or we'll just go up to 154. The plan is to go up to 154. We'll go up there and get those belts, you know? So everybody's, looking at it like, oh, is he going to go automatically jump up to 154 and fight for undisputed? Or is he going to fight, Keith Thurman? Now, as far as the whole Keith Thurman aspect of it is, there's absolutely nothing this man has done so far that would make you believe that fight is something that they're looking for. Like actual grunt work, contacting people. According to Bernie the Boxer, they've never even talked to PBC. So how is Keith Thurman somebody that potentially that you're looking at if you've never contacted PBC? As if, Keith Thurman's going to fight, and if he wins, you just make a phone call and it's whatever. If they have any kind of plans, they're just going to scrap everything in order to make things work for you. No, if that was a plan that they had, one of the number one things they would have done is they would have contacted PBC to see what they need to do as far as maybe getting that fight or working out some kind of deal so they can start some kind of working relationship. Because somebody like a Terrence Crawford, hey, they might have had him fight, they might have had him fight on a card against who knows, anybody. Kind of to introduce him to, to fighting on PBC, fighting on Fox or Showtime or whatever it might have been. Then after that, then cool, maybe then set up a fight with a Keith Thurman, and then after that set up a fight with, like, let's say a Earl Spence, something like that. Even when it comes to someone like Earl Spence, when you're talking about an organization that's saying, hey, this guy wasn't promoted right, this guy wasn't pushed right. This is all that he's going to want these type of, this type of money. But, when we're looking at what he's bringing to the table, those two things don't align up. When somebody's talking like that, you're going to be like, yo, I really want this fight. So let me contact these people and try to and see what I can do as far as putting myself into the space where I can get this particular fight, whether it be a 2-fight deal, a 3-fight deal. Well, maybe do 1 fight, then after that do a Keith Thurman fight. So we can get that pay-per-view that and work with an organization that is going to promote me and maybe get me into the space where maybe I can then end up getting what I want, whether it be that equal pay, that 50-50 or whatever it might be, or in order to get the fight that I want. You're going to contact people in order to try to get all those ducks in a row in order to get what you want in the business side of things. You just screaming on the ocean, hey, I'm looking for the big fish. I'm looking for the big fish. And then Bernie going on different social media outlets saying F Al Heyman, F PBC, F Spence. Nothing's going to get done that way. So if it was a situation where he was serious about getting these fights done, I believe that's what he would, even if he has his representatives, those representatives would have contacted PBC and try to see if they can work something out as far as a business arrangement is concerned. And that hasn't been done. And because that hasn't been done, that's why me personally, I don't believe, any of this fight's going to happen. The Keith Thurman doesn't make any sense because you haven't contacted them. And the Earl Spence fight itself also doesn't make any sense to me because they haven't contacted with them. What they have planned, I don't know. But as far as Earl Spence, what I do know is, though, after he does fight Ugas, I think he will try to set up that fight. I think they will make an honest effort to make that fight, but I don't see it happen. at all. Me personally, I don't see it happening. I hope it does. I want to see the fight. It happens. I'm going to be there. I don't even care who wins. I'm going to be there. It's just one of those big fights that I would like to see. Really, like when Sean Porter fought against Keith Thurman. I didn't care who won that fight. That was one of the fights that I wanted to see real bad, and it happened, and I was real hyped up for that fight. It was an awesome fight, and absolutely enjoyed it. And as far as at 154 pounds, this assumption that he's just going to move up and get that fight, again, even if you're trying to make that type of move, you still have to deal with the same people. You still have to deal with PBC. You still have to deal with Al Heyman. Regardless, you still have to do those things, And right now, your only gateway to that, I guess, would be through the WBO, where right now they have Tim Tszyu is the WBO mandatory, and not only is the WBO mandatory, he just got step aside money, in order to let this undisputed bout happen. So he's going to get his shot. And I understand people saying, well, him being the 147-pound champion, he can just move up and he can get the shot. No. He could have done that if he was with Bob Arum. Because as we all know, the WBO stands for what? What Bob orders. So if he was with Bob Arum, then yeah, he might have been able to do something like that. But he's not with them anymore. So if he could request that, he could request that. Maybe if Tszyu would be okay with fighting you and your representatives are willing to pay Tszyu a substantial amount of money, then maybe they can do that fight. And if you win that fight, that'll put you into a position where, you might then be the mandatory. Maybe, maybe you could do it that way. But why would Tszyu do that when he can fight for undisputed? If he's in a position where he can fight for undisputed, that's what he's going to do. He's going to fight for undisputed. So these paths that were kind of trailed for him, set for him by someone who's Bob Arum, that's not happening anymore. And even though, I understand he's probably with MTK, but MTK does not have the same level of juice as a WBO, as a top rank in Bob Arum. They don't have the same type of juice as the Al Heyman PBC. They don't. They absolutely don't. So unless they're personally going to take a substantial amount of funds and give it to Tim Tszyu, I don't see that. I don't even see that fight happening. So, which basically means you still have to deal with the same people that you're pissing on, the same people that you're trashing. You got to deal with them, and that doesn't matter. And regardless of who wins, because both sides work with PBC. Both sides work with PBC. So this fallacy dream of jumping up to 154, fighting Charlo or Castano, whoever wins that fight, and then you getting that belt. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening either. This is not. Terrence Crawford continues to act, and his team continues to act as if they're talking in a position of power. You're not in a position of power. You're dealing with people that are on a completely different level than you. Okay, and that military you had behind your back in Top Rank, it's gone. That clout that you had with the WBO, that had to do with Bob Arum. Okay, there's a reason why you had to fight Sean Porter. Because believe me, Bob Arum could have had it set up where you didn't have to fight Sean Porter for that mandatory. But he wanted you, because he knew you were leaving, he wanted to put you up against that opposition where you have a chance of losing. That's why he did that. That's the reason why he did that. That's why you fought Sean Porter. Okay? And he put up that money, even though supposedly he loses so much on Terrence Crawford, but then he's putting up $10 million to make this fight all of a sudden, even though he's, quote, losing money on Terrence Crawford on a regular basis. So I'm not sure what exact move him and his team are going to make. I guess we'll find out. It's been a couple of weeks, I guess, couple of months, I guess, probably since he's fought, and we've heard absolutely nothing. We've seen him doing absolutely nothing. According to, people in his camp, he hasn't talked to anybody as far as PBC is concerned, whether it be to do with Earl Spence or whether it be to do with even a 154 type of fight with like a Charlo, which you'd have to be doing now, especially if you have the type of requests and demands that you have. You have to figure it out. See, there's a way of maybe doing this. Maybe there's a way of you getting your funds or whatever it might be that you want over 2-fight deal, 3-fight deal, or whatever it might be. Them just structuring something in a way where you're happy, and they're also happy, Maybe, that's basically going to be how you would do it. But hey, I guess we'll see if it work. His personal plans work out. But as far as him fighting at 154 pounds against Charlo or Castano, I don't see that happening. I honestly don't see that happening. I don't see that happening, especially if Castano wins. Because if Castano wins, Earl Spence is moving up there and is fighting him for undisputed, and he's gonna do that fight. He's gonna do that fight. And Tim Tszyu, he's gonna take that step aside money, and then after he fights Castano, guess what? Then Tszyu's gonna fight for undisputed on pay-per-view, as well. So depending on who wins, I don't know if Charlo is gonna end up moving up, because if he moves up and the belts scatter, then okay, that's a situation where then maybe then Tszyu fights Terrence Crawford for that 154 strap. Maybe your team can set something up like that. But as far as I think in the next couple of months, Team Crawford's gonna pretty much realize that they're not in a position to dictate anything to anyone. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.